What's up, everybody? Welcome to another Outside Chronicles live campfire questions and answers. We're going to be doing these monthlies and we're going to be taking your live questions. So if you have any questions, drop them in the comments and hopefully we'll give you some answers. Each month, we're going to pick a main topic and sometimes I'll invite a guest, sometimes it'll be a OC guide, and sometimes I'll be solo. This month, we're talking about nature and adventure writing with Brian Kastner. Brian's an OC guide. You might have been on a couple of trips with him already. And he's also a best-selling author and has a pretty interesting and inspiring story in general. If you're joining us on the live stream and you're getting ready for winter hiking challenge, drop winter in the comments and let us know you're here. Say hi, and we'll get going. So just a couple of announcements. If you were in the summer challenge, or if you're not, you can still join us. It's going to be a great time. There's going to be a auction from Buffalo Audubon of a bunch of photographs, mostly of birds, but other nature things. But Birds, Boots, and Brews is happening this Friday from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. If you completed the 2025 Western New York Hiking Challenge, you can come and pick up your patches and stickers there. We got a lot of great prizes. Clarksburg cider was very, very generous, and we have lots of 4-packs of cider, some great gift baskets to raffle off. We have some lucky polls. So if you participated in the challenge or you're participating in the winter challenge and just want to meet some hikers, come out to Buffalo River Works on December 12th, Friday at 6 p.m. and we'll see you there. And can't wait to hand out all of the patches to you guys. And if you're just getting ready, the winter hiking challenge is taking shape. I've been working hard all week to get a bunch of different things set, and I'm very excited for the lineup of trails this year. This year it's starting on December 20th, so it's actually a day early because it's a weekend, it's a Saturday, extra days of hiking. If you want more information on that, go to hike-wny.com, and I'll have another announcement about our next live event later on because it will be kicking off the hiking challenge. So if you're joining us online, say hi in the chat. Let us know you're here. If you're excited about the winter challenge, drop winter in the chat. Let us know you're excited about the winter challenge. And without further ado, I'm going to bring Brian on the screen. So welcome, Brian. Thank you for joining us. It's great to have you here.
Excited to chat with you. Thanks for having me to edition number 2 of the Campfire Q&As.
So yeah, I've got a whole lot of stuff to talk about with Brian. He's got a very interesting story. I've known Brian for, I don't know, maybe 7-8 years now, I think. I met him raft guiding at Zor Valley rafting, and we've been friends ever since, and we've now been doing OC guided trips. Brian's been on the High Peaks trips. He's done the canoe trips. Has a really interesting background, and I can't wait to ask him some questions about his background. And then we're going to get into some outdoor stuff. The main topic today is nature writing and adventure writing. So we're going to get into that after we talked with Brian a bit. So Brian, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background, where you work, and where you went to school, and your storied background.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks again for having me. So I grew up in Western New York in Cheektowaga, went away for college, went to Marquette University in Milwaukee, kind of a classic story where I moved away and swore I would never come back. And yet here I am. We live on Grand Island now. It's a great place, obviously, to raise a family and, so many things to do locally and in the state. I started my career, let's say, I guess, in the U.S. military. I was an Explosive Ordnance Disposal officer. EOD is the bomb squad. I did that for 8 years. I became a contractor. I became a writer. What I would describe that I do now is I do have a day job. I work for an international charity where we help people that are affected by armed conflict and various crises around the world. But I would describe myself as a full-time writer, part-time wilderness guide, full-time farmer. It's hard to be both a full-time farmer and a full-time wilderness guide. You can't be in two places at the same time. And so I feel really fortunate that I get to pursue a number of passions, I guess, at the same time, which has been informed by, a lot of it's been informed by my time in the military, and then, my time outdoors and various travel and writing opportunities.
Yeah, I don't have many friends that have Wikipedia pages, so it was.
Right,
I,
right.
I thought I knew you well, but then I, had to Google you a bit, and you have a Wikipedia page. So if anybody wants to make a Wikipedia page about me, go for it. But that's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
you got to wait
Uh,
for somebody to do it. Wikipedia is a weird thing that way, but
yeah, you
yes,
can't do it yourself.
you can't do it yourself. But
So,
yeah, I did end up with one of those over time.
so in the military, you were EOD, Explosive Ordnance Disposal, and
Right.
did did that inspire? How did you get into become a writer? Because I know your first couple of books were about your time in the military. So, like,
That's right.
where did that inspiration come from? Did you write before the military, or did your experience in Iraq have that lasting impact on you to write about it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. So I always loved to read growing up, and I loved to write growing up, but I didn't think that being a writer was like something you could do. I did not think it was like a quote real job. And I guess maybe in some ways it's not. But I just didn't know any writers. In high school you tend to read writers who are all dead, right? I just didn't I was not plugged in and understand the writing community, how you produce a book, how any of that works. So it's kind of one of those things I just put to the side. I studied engineering in college. I was not a great engineer. I mean, I got good grades, but that's not how my brain works really on some fundamental level. And I ended up in explosive ordnance disposal almost as not exactly an accident, but it's not why I joined the military. I actually wanted to be an astronaut, and I joined the military in the 90s, just to date myself a little bit, I guess. It was a very different world. It was pre 9/11. But after 9/11, I transitioned from an engineering job in the Air Force into explosive ordnance disposal. And like you said, I did a couple tours in Iraq. And I mean, I had struggles coming home. I obviously the combat tours themselves were arduous. I had trouble transitioning back. I had a lot of post traumatic stress that I needed to work through. And I wouldn't say that Iraq made me a writer, but it did give me something worth writing about. And it
Hmm.
gave me, I had a topic and I had a story where I finally said, you know what, I think the story of going to war and coming home, on the one hand, it's the oldest story in the world. It's the Odyssey. It's, you
Right,
could
the
go through
hero's journey, right?
the hero's journey. It's absolutely one of those archetypical stories. And so in some ways it's not new, but it's also the timelessness is one reason that there's some fundamental piece of that story that is true, which is why people keep rewriting it over and over again. And so I wrote my version of it, and that was my first book. And I feel really fortunate that because I was fairly successful in that first book, if you write one book that works, they'll maybe let you write a second. You can, if you pitch magazine editors, they'll at least read your pitch and give you an opportunity. And so I managed to write full time for 8 years, and ultimately, four books and a number of magazine pieces and such like that.
Now, I did read your first book. It's actually your second book, right? The Long Walk is your second book.
No, no, that's the
That was
first
your first
one.
book.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, yeah.
and that's the one we're talking about. It kind of chronicles Brian's time in the military, and thank you for your service, and thank you for everything that you went through for the country. And it's a great book, and I can see why it was award winning. One thing I saw on your Wikipedia page is that it was an opera. How,
Yes,
how does
that's
a
true.
military
Yes.
EOD turn into an opera?
Yeah, serendipity is the answer to that. So, I mean, I've gotten to know a lot of folks in the opera world, and it turns out that at least when my book was turned into an opera, that the only living people that had an opera made about them were me and my family and Jerry Springer, which is a an odd combination. Jerry has since passed, but so I mean, really, quite by accident, and I mean that uh, uh, Jeremy Howard Beck, who's the composer, and Stephanie Fleischman, who's the librettist, were going through an opera development program in New York and had both graduated from the program and got a grant to write their first opera together. And Stephanie and Jeremy are amazing folks, and they're good friends of mine now. But they are almost oil and water. They are very dissimilar people. And as they went through all of the various topics that they wanted to write or write an opera about, they could not agree on a single thing. And eventually, out of desperation, Jeremy walked through a Barnes and Noble and just took photographs of book covers at on the new book table. And fortunately, The Long Walk was on that table, and they both agreed. They read it, and it stuck with them. And so, I guess in 2015, 3 years later, we had the premiere at Opera Saratoga, and we're fortunate it got new productions in Utah and
Oh, wow.
Pittsburgh, I guess. And so it's a. I mean, we could spend the next hour talking about opera and what a both odd and like deeply, I don't know, strange, but also just I mean, such an honor, that experience. And like, I mean, my kids have an opera of their childhood,
Mhm.
right? Which is not something that you could, it's not a gift I could give them, but it's not a thing that many kids can say. So
It was
it's a
definitely
funny
a strange
experience.
combo, right? For
Yes, right,
just
right.
I always had meant to ask you about it. I think I heard that
Yeah,
at some
b
point, but
but there is, I mean, the time again, though, the timelessness of the story. I mean,
right.
opera, the thing that's amazing about opera is it's like, artistic emotion, like, straight into your veins.
Mhm.
And when you have, again, my story is not special at all, going to war and coming home. It's the oldest story, but that is what operas are made of, is old love stories and, these, marriages and funerals and these kind of heightened emotional events in a person's life. And so I guess if you look at it that way, it's right material to be used.
I want to ask if you had any input on who played Brian.
No, but Danny Belcher is a friend of mine now. It is, and when we would all get together, there would be like Opera Brian and like Opera Jessie. Jessie's my wife, and like real Jessie and whatever, and then the kids playing the kids, and like, yeah, it was a bit of a surreal. I mean, but just like the most wonderful, generous people that, like I said, have become family friends over the years.
Um, so I'm gonna ask you about one of your other books, probably my favorite book, and uh, I love books that recreate some historic, adventurers trail, early explorers, and the book Disappointment River. Uh, for whatever reason, it came up in my feed because I was reading these other books about the Lost City of Z and the Lost City of the Monkey God, and um, I'm trying to think of what Theodore Roosevelt's book, the River of
Oh,
Doubt.
River of Doubt. Yeah,
So
excellent
it
book.
was all
Thomas
these books
Millard.
that were like kind of people recreating these epic voyages. And, yours is the same kind of thing where there's the history of Mackenzie and then your recreation of his trip. So how did you come about that trip and getting interested in Mackenzie's, search for the Northwest Passage?
Yeah, I mean, like most things in life, again, it was an accident. It was a Google search where I was looking for something else, and I stumbled upon Alexander Mackenzie. And when I did, I was astounded that I had never heard of this guy. So maybe like you, I learned in fourth grade that Lewis and Clark were the first two people to lead an expedition across North America, at least in recorded history. And it turns out our fourth grade teachers lied to us. It wasn't Lewis and Clark. It was Alexander Mackenzie who did it 12 years earlier. And in fact, Lewis and Clark carried his journals with them in their canoe. And Mackenzie's trip was was an inspiration for Lewis and Clark to go themselves. So Mackenzie was a fur trader. He came to New York in 1774 or 1775 as a boy, but his family were loyalists. They fled to Montreal, and he kind of apprenticed and grew up in the fur trading system with the Northwest Company, which was like the rival to the Hudson's Bay Company. And he just, I mean, he excelled at it, and he went from one post to another. And at the time, the best beaver fur is where it's very cold in winter. And so the further north you go and the further west you go, it got colder and colder. And he found himself at that time at the far edge of the map, which was the Slave River south of Great Slave Lake. And they heard all these rumors that there was a giant river that went west into the setting sun, and that if they could find this river, they would basically have like a fast track to China. They would
Mhm.
discover the Northwest Passage. So he sets out in 1789. He actually did two trips. The one that inspired Lewis and Clark was a couple years later, but his first trip was through Great Slave Lake, and then they found a massive river heading west. And I guess not to give away all of the book, but that river, if you know your geography of northern Canada, it doesn't go to the Pacific. It hits the Rocky Mountains, and it makes a hard right turn,
Mhm.
and it goes north up into the Arctic Ocean. And so he eventually called that river is now the Mackenzie River. It's the second longest in North America, only behind the Mississippi, Missouri system. But he called it a river of disappointment. And the reason was when he got to the end, the Arctic Ocean in July was full of ice. He couldn't get any further.
Mhm.
And when I read that story, that was the inspiration then to recreate the trip because, again, spoiler alert, with climate change, the Arctic Ocean is not full of ice in the summer anymore. It's wide open. It's wide open water. So I spent the summer of, I guess that's 2016, if I'm doing my math right. I spent the summer of 2016 paddling the Mackenzie River and recreating that trip.
Now, what was the book a catalyst to this that you said, I'm going to recreate this trip and it's going to become
Yep,
a book? Or
that's
or
right.
did the trip come first and the book came after?
No, what's funny is that you mentioned Lost City of Z. The real thing is Lost City of Z came first, and your algorithm is right to put the two books together because I read that and I was kind of in search of a trip exactly like you described, which was recreating something. Lost City of Z is David Grant is the author, and that recreates Percy Fawcett's trip
Mhm.
into the Amazon. And I mean, I had never heard of Percy Fawcett before that book, but it's a really fascinating story. And I was on the lookout for an example of this, and Alexander Mackenzie, like I said, popped in my Google feed. And so I pitched the book to my editor, and he liked the idea. And so yeah, I was very conscious of this wasn't this wasn't just how I was spending my summer for fun. I was writing a book the whole time.
Cool. We're going to come back to this because I think it's an interesting topic. Because I want to ask you, I'm going to ask you in a little bit about how, how did you prepare? Like, what did you do? That's such an epic voyage. But before we go there, what inspired you to, into the outdoors? Was there a specific event where did you grow up in the outdoors? Like,
Yeah, I
to
mean,
take on a huge canoe trip like that, you had to have experience and a love for it. So where did that come from in your life?
yeah, I mean, I had spent a lot of time hiking as a kid, and my family would do stuff. We had family on the West Coast, and so every year we would go and hike Mount Hood, not to the top. I've never actually been to the top of Mount Hood. I've been to the caldera, to the smoking volcanic rim several times, but never all the way to the top. It's a technical trip the rest of the way. So I had done that. My dad took me on trips in the Niagara River in our canoe without life jackets. It was the 80s. I do not recommend that. We're much better on safety then. But I had never taken a long trip. I had never done even a week long trip. In the military, I mean, there's a lot of camping in the military. You might not call it that, but there's a lot of spending time outside. of course. So I've just always felt better outside. And so, I mean, I was, on the one hand, I did have some background, like you said before, you and I are river guides. I know how to guide a canoe. I know how to read water. I know how to, do some of those things. I had never taken a trip of this size. And
Mhm.
so I was definitely on the, I mean, beyond the edge of my skills at the time. And there was a lot of things we were either learning for the trip or learned on the trip, sometimes the hard way, I
Ah,
guess. And so, I mean, there was a time in my life when I wanted to do the Appalachian Trail or the Pacific Coast Trail or something like that. I will probably never have time in my life to do that, but the 40 days on the water on this trip, that's a through hike, so to speak, that I could
mhm.
actually accomplish.
Yeah. So I don't know the answer to this. This is a question for me. Is when and what made you decide to become a wilderness guide? I'm assuming it was raft guiding was
Yes. Yeah,
your
yeah.
foray into that, but what brought you into that?
Yeah, so I had canoed, but I had not done whitewater and I was not a whitewater kayaker. After the military and then as a contractor, I had a job where I was traveling around a lot. And as I was having some of my, post-traumatic stress challenges and was looking for outlets, that's when I found whitewater rafting. And actually, I'd probably gone in college or something, but my first trip
Mhm.
as an adult when I was really paying attention was the Royal Gorge in Colorado, the Arkansas River there. And I mean, I found a feeling there. It's not the adrenaline junkie feeling, or maybe something that as people might think. I wasn't trying to recreate bomb disposal or recreate taking apart IEDs or combat or something like that. It's the calm that I at least feel in a rapid where you just have a real peace of mind. Psychologists sometimes call it flow, where you're really not thinking about anything else except your line, the hydraulic, like you just have to be completely present in the moment. And that was not exactly a switch flipping for me, but like when I was on the river and in the rapid, like all of those, challenges coming home were put aside for at least a little bit.
Mhm.
And we did the Arkansas, and I'm like, I have got to do more of this, and did it places. And then, in Buffalo, I said, well, is there anywhere way to do it nearby? And I found Adventure Calls and our friend Kevin there in Letchworth, who initially hired me on, and then started working in Zor Valley and in Letchworth. And I don't know, I guess I've had to renew my license a couple times. So I think I'm about 13 years in or so with that.
Right. Cool. Um, so now you've been in the military, you've been an author, you've been a whitewater guide, you're a wilderness guide with me in the Adirondacks, and now you decided to buy a farm.
That's right.
So
Not enough to do, not enough hats to be wearing.
where did that come from? That kind of came out of left field too.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. I think I've had to give this more thought and I think I have an answer to that question finally. So a couple things came together. One great thing about the military is you meet people from all over the country and all different kinds of people. And I met a number of folks that all had family farms, and they were from all over Texas or South Dakota or Illinois or whatever. And I was always a little jealous that some people had these family farms, and we had farmers in our family, but you have to go back many generations before you get to pig farmers in Pennsylvania. And so I eventually at some point realized that if somebody has to start that family farm before you can
Mhm.
get to the fourth generation, you need a first generation. And kind of the opportunity and the thing that changed, like for many people, was COVID. And I had a job, whether it was writing, I mean, for many years, whether it was the military or contracting or being a journalist, traveled around the world in journalism, or my job working in conflict areas. I was just traveling constantly, and COVID forced me, like many others, to just break the cycle. And in breaking the cycle, could try a lot of things that I had wanted to do and didn't have time. Raising chickens, doing maple syrup, doing another things, and this this nagging thing about, having that family farm, finally, hey, it came together, and that like maybe there's an opportunity here, and I have a good friend who's a war correspondent for the New York Times, and he always talked about that, it can be a hard life working on these kind of conflicts, and you need an exit ramp. His exit ramp is he's a commercial fisherman in Rhode Island, but
Mhm.
having that kind of completely other thing. The other thing is, I should say, at the farm, we're raising sheep and chickens and putting in an orchard, but we're also converting the 1840s farmhouse into a bed and breakfast. And that's something my wife and I, on our honeymoon, we stayed at a bed and breakfast in Quebec. And we've just always had this idea of we just loved bed and breakfast. We love the whole thing, and having an adventure bed and breakfast where, something we did in Quebec is we could just go cross country skiing right out the back door
Mhm.
there. And so having a place where you could bike or hike or snowshoe or whatever else, and having kind of a home base there. So we're fortunate. Our farm is in the foothills of the Adirondacks, just outside the park boundary. And yeah, we can farm there, but we also have access to the Hudson River and the high peaks and the Green Mountains
Mhm.
and Lake Champlain. It's all within, in some cases, just a couple minutes. Buck Mountain overlooking Lake George is, that trailhead is 20 minutes away.
Nice. Yeah, we're definitely Brian and I are in conversations of seeing how we can leverage his property for a OC
We'll
trip in
figure
the
it out.
future.
We'll figure it out. There will be a OC home base for
We've already
some trip
had
out there.
some of his fresh chicken and eggs on our trips, which was a nice treat. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting. I think COVID, it, as devastating as it was across the world, it was also really good for a lot of people. Like
Yeah.
I agree, it was that stop, and you kind of realize that all this busyness around you doesn't have to always be there, and life goes on, and life is good when that busyness isn't there. And that, for me, that's the outdoors. That's where
Right.
my release into it is, always to go outside and get that. And uh, it took COVID for a lot of people to get that way. Some really love sourdough now, but
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
you went to chickens and bought a farm, which is you know
I
an
have this
extreme.
sourdough pasta, like homemade sourdough pasta from my cousin, sitting on my shelf right now. So yeah, the sourdough some ways has taken over. But yeah, I mean, it broke the cycle, right? And it's a horrific, terrible way to have, broken the cycle for the world. But no, I'm not a special snowflake here. I know it has for many people, but for us, it was, hey, now's the time. Let's
Mhm.
find a farm, and yeah, the timing has worked out.
Cool. I can't wait to see it, and yeah, like I said, hopefully a OC trip in the future.
Yeah, we'll do
I'm
lamb
gonna
chops next time.
I'm gonna shift gears a little bit to outdoors, and just going back to Disappointment River. So that was a 1,100 miles, right? Or
Yep,
somewhere in
that's
that
about
neighborhood that you paddled
that's right.
solo. And I know, reading the book, you had some friends join you for some of the legs, but largely it was, self-supported by you. Like, how did you prepare for that? And like, that's just, 40 days when we go on the Grand Canyon for the 23 days that I went, it was
Yep,
just so much preparation. And I'm so
that's
glad there
right.
was an outfitter that helped with this. How did you do it yourself? Like, what did that look like?
I mean, so it was self-supported in that we brought all of our own food. Partly we brought all of our own food. There are indigenous villages along the way where we had done research, and we knew that there was, it's called the Northern Store in Canada, but it's kind of a combination grocery and hardware store, and we'd be able to buy, well, not fresh fruit, but canned goods
Mhm.
and some other things. But we brought about half our food, and it was only one canoe. Now I did have four friends. One was always sitting in the front, and I was in the back. So in some ways, it's like, my four friends were like a relay race, and I was the baton, and they just passed me off, and they did trip to trip. But there was a lot of, I mean, because nobody else could take an entire summer off, right, and do the whole thing. Like it's only
Mhm.
me as the writer that was able to do that. I mean, the honest answer is that there is only so much preparation you can do, and then you're mostly planning for the contingency. So, like something about the Grand Canyon, as you know, but for people that haven't done it, there are these really detailed guides that go mile by mile, rapid by rapid, campsite by campsite. You have to be in certain campsites. You know how many people can fit in each one of them, and that. And my biggest concern on the Mackenzie is we just every night we did not know where we were sleeping,
Mm,
and it's because I mean it was not there were not campsites. It's not possible to plan where you're going to sleep. And so much is dependent on the weather and how many miles you can make that day, but also the water level. There is a guide to paddle the Mackenzie. We took it, we studied it. It was completely wrong because it was written at a different water level, and
mm,
that's not the fault of the authors. It's just that at our water level, the campsites that they said were available were not available. It varies like really significantly based on snowpack, and I mean it's undammed, so it's just to the vagaries of the weather.
mm,
Um, I think that you and some things are similar. You have to find your gear. I spent a lot of time thinking about the tent we were going to be in. We got a tent that is a common tent used at Everest Base Camp, double lined. We knew that it had to be good at 100 degrees in the first part of the journey, and it had to be good below freezing at the end of the journey. We had sleet at the end. It was 33 degrees on the last day going out into the Arctic. I mean, you're planning your meals, you're adding contingency, you're thinking about wildlife. We didn't take a gun because I just didn't want to walk. I didn't feel right walking into a village armed. I mean, it would have been legal to do it, but like also unnecessary. You can scare away. I mean, you can do a lot of things to avoid bears are the issue. You can avoid grizzly bears. You can't avoid polar bears. Polar bears will hunt you, but it's the time of year that they weren't going to be around. Um, I mean, I'm not sure what to say, except it really is like the steps, right? Like what boat am I going to have? What tent? What
mhm.
what stove is what I was trying to say. We took two stoves that could run on all different kinds of fuel, and then we ended up not even using those. We ended up buying another stove, a third one, in the beginning of the trip. Kind of a long story, but if you remember from the book, we had some stuff stolen. Ended up actually with a biofuel stove where we gathered sticks and lichen
Mhm.
and stuff every day. That was the right solution. We should have done that from the very beginning.
Uh,
Then we would never have had to worry about fuel. We didn't kind of learn that until partway through the trip. So, um, I mean, yeah, again, we would go like 10 days without seeing a single person. I mean, that's true. But at the same time, if there weren't Fort Good Hope and a Klavik and a Nuvik and these other indigenous communities along the way, it would have been like an even much, more difficult journey than it was. I mean, about 10,000 people live in the Mackenzie Valley right now, from Great Slave Lake to the Arctic. That's about as many people lived in the Mackenzie Valley when Mackenzie did the trip.
mm,
So it in some ways, some things have changed and some have not.
right. So, what did you think was your most valuable piece of gear on that trip?
Oh, the tent for sure.
The
I mean,
10?
like the tent, double walled. Um, I mean, the sun never sets up there, so like eventually you get solar powered, and it feels very odd, and like, it's tough to sleep, and you're hardly
Mhm,
sleeping anyway. But you're spending time in the tent, even if you're not sleeping because the mosquitoes are so bad, and so
mm.
just having that refuge. Um, what was the name of Superman's fortress at the North Pole? The Fortress of
Oh, Fortress of
Solitude or something?
Solitude, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Fortress of
yeah. That's
Solitude, yeah.
one of my friends called the tent that because after a long day of mosquitoes and sun and or wind or sleet or whatever else, you could always like you really needed that place where you could recharge. So,
Oh,
I mean, extra time on um, multiple like what am I trying to say? Sleeping pads and
mhm.
one inflatable pad and one foam core and the super sleeping bag and 12 pillows and yeah, like trying to because if your back goes out or something else while you're up there, you're just um, then you're really
Right.
stuck.
And was there any major item that you forgot that you wish you had?
Uh, what did I wish that I had? I mean, we used most of what we took. I think the
Mm,
most precarious thing is that there's a rule in the military that two is one and one is none. So you always take extra of something. And then on the very first night, we left a charging cable behind at the first campsite. And so we had a single cable to charge phones and GPS and everything else from a single battery, kind of,
mhm.
and solar battery and stuff the rest of the trip. And if we've lost that second cord,
Mm.
I guess
Cord.
we would have been stuck because you can't buy an
Right.
iPhone cable in northern Canada, right? So, yeah, I think that was maybe the potentially the thing we would have left behind or would have missed.
Uh-huh. So Laura asked the question, uh, in your reading about Mackenzie's treks, did he note the mosquitoes being bad?
Yeah, I mean, he had lived with mosquitoes in the north for so long. He kind of talks about the mosquitoes. He has kind of a funny style. So we have we have Mackenzie's journal. And something that was really neat was I was essentially reading his journal on the trip.
Mm,
And some things that so that journal has been republished a number of times, and a number of like academic editors have published it with footnotes, and they will note in certain places that, like, Mackenzie says he sees this mountain but it's impossible. And I can tell you that that editor had never done the trip,
mm,
because you can see the mountain from the place, because I could see the mountain in the place that Mackenzie said. So I mean, some
uh-huh.
of those kind of things are interesting. um, but then there's other stuff that he just like completely kind of glides over. And I mean, some scholars think he was actually asleep in the canoe most of the time, while the voyagers, excuse me, and his indigenous guides kind of did all the work. And maybe
Mhm.
that's why he skipped some observations. So, yeah, it's a funny mix of things that he decides to note and doesn't. I mean, he was also a businessman. He wasn't trying to find the Northwest Passage because of like some sense of self actualization and like inner discovery and Zen. He was trying to sell beaver pelts, right? So
Right.
a lot of his observations are very practical.
Hmm. Well, I'm going to segue into our nature writing classes that we did, that you did, not me. I
No, no, no.
observed.
You were there. You're part of the class.
But one of the things that you stressed in the class was observation.
Yep.
And can
Yep.
you just kind of talk about what that first class was? Where did you get the idea to have a nature writing class, and how did it go? What kind of feedback did you get from it?
Yeah, it was great, and I think this is a great thing to do through OC. And something that I've noticed in some of the trips you and I have done is that at the end of the day, whether it's in Johns Brook Lodge or at a campsite in Saranac Lakes or whatever else, a lot of people pull out their journal and write about what they did that day. And I understand it. I've done that on outdoor trips for years. Um, and I mean, I've taught workshops for years, and a lot of them, they can be about memoir, or they can be about military topics, or just kind of general nonfiction topics. But it seems like a really obvious things. A lot of uh, folks in the OC community are, obviously they're looking for challenges. But it's outdoor chronicles. It's like it's outside. It's like telling stories. The being outside and telling the story about being outside is so central to it.
Mhm.
And I think that, you know and maybe I think some people are always looking to get better at something, they want to improve. I think some people are also looking for new skills when they want to try something, and they're not even sure where to start. So
Mhm.
we've done the one class. We did it at Rhinestone Woods, and it was an introduction, just a couple hours. There's only so much you can do in a couple hours, of course, but it's just to get people's feet wet. And like you say, the this idea of observation, what I have found is that if you're trying to tell a story to a general audience, to people outside of that, maybe the group that has been there, um, the details are what make the story. And people will find the general meaning in the story on their own, but just saying that, like, the trail was steep and the rocks were slippery and the rain was wet and I was soaked and then I got home. I mean, that describes most Adirondack trips, but it doesn't tell the story of your trip necessarily.
Mhm.
And so I think that a couple things lead to being a good writer. One of them is just reading a lot. And so something that we did in that even in a couple hours, we read some great outdoor writing as part of that class. But then the other thing you do is just like trying to be a really good observer and trying to as accurately as possible, explain what you're seeing, and not by saying that the trees were tall and the ground was hard, but like,
Mhm.
trying to spend a little time to, like, make as quality of a observation and getting the feeling right. That's really the thing I've always, tried to do in my writing, is with whatever else, communicate that feeling. And so the reader has the feeling of it, that the author and that the writer does too.
Yeah, I can say for my perspective, I'm a very analytical person, and I went up the mountain. There was a big rock on at 3,500 feet. Then it started raining, and I came down. Like
Right.
and just sitting through that class, I really got an appreciation for how to make it not so mechanical, and actually look at stuff differently. And I really got that not from me writing, but actually listening to everybody else's writing to see, I think we read 6, 8 people's different
Right.
writings, and each person had a different style, and we all looked at the same thing and experienced the
Right.
same thing, but each one of them expressed it differently, and that's what for me that was an eye opening experience in the writing, you know, aspect of things.
Yeah, I mean, the little secret of a writing workshop is that I'm leading the workshop, but I'm actually not doing all the teaching. A lot of the learning that happens in a workshop is the students, the participants, the writing that happens there, and the sharing with each other and getting feedback. Really, the heart of a workshop is, you know, I wrote this thing and I intended it, to communicate this one thing, but then you need feedback from readers to say, well, here's what I meant, but what did you actually hear? What did you see? What did you imagine in your mind? And like you say, everybody can look at the same, giant dead birch tree, but people are going to notice different things about it, and have different observations. I also want to say that, like, we're not trying to turn people into a certain kind of writer. Like, the goal of a workshop is to help you, tell the story that you want to tell. It's not to turn you into Wordsworth or, I don't know, pick insert famous fancy writer here.
Mhm.
It's to, if you want to be a poet, if you want to be funny, if you want to be irreverent, if you want to be super fancy and literary, if you want to really focus on the language and the rhythm, like whatever the thing is, the goal of the workshop is to help you, become the best writer that you can be in the kind of style and in your own voice. I should be helping you sound like you. I shouldn't be trying to help you sound like, you know, pick your favorite writer here.
Mhm. So we did the intro workshop, and now what's next?
Yeah, so we're looking at a couple different kinds of workshops. So one that we're doing, and we have the first iteration of scheduled in January, is writing through the seasons. And so we'll do a winter, spring, summer, fall version of this. And but I mean, the basic format will be the same in that we will read some great writing, we'll get outside, because I mean, this is about being outside and in the outdoors. We'll get out in January. If there's snow, we'll do a snowshoe or we'll do a hike. We'll get around. This one's going to be a beaver meadow. And, we're getting outside both to move our bodies. I find I do my best writing after a run, but you're really getting the blood moving and getting the blood in your brain, helps it get going, but also to be inspired. And then we'll sit and write and share the writing with each other, and that's a full day. And so
Mhm.
you don't have to bring anything other than your snowshoes and yourself and a knit hat to that one in January. And as we're inspired by the seasons is how we'll do different versions. We're also talking though about doing kind of something more in depth where we'll meet regularly on a weekday evening, and we'll do it over 2 months or so. And that's for people to bring writing they've already done. And whether it's your own outdoor writing about a certain trip, or it's family memoir writing, or it's poetry that you were inspired by, or whatever the case may be. We are keeping it somewhat outdoor focused, but still this
Mhm.
is through the OC community. And have people bring some of that more personal writing that's not the spur of the moment. It's maybe something they've been working on, and they're at a spot where, like, hey, I want to make this better. I feel stuck. I don't know what comes next. I don't know if this is working or not. It- Something that's funny about writing is that, and actually this is an interesting dichotomy with opera. So opera that we were talking about before, there's a performance on stage. It is happening in the moment. It is quick, it is ephemeral, it is IRL, it is right there. But then the singer, the performer, gets immediate feedback on
Mhm.
whether the performance is right or not. Hopefully, they get a standing ovation at the end, and everybody has this experience together. The interesting thing about writing as an art form is the writer has one experience sitting at a computer or at a notebook or whatever, and then they never see the reader. And in fact, the reader might be separated by hundreds of miles and a decade or something. And so there's this weird disconnect and time travel aspect of it. And unless you, as the writer, get feedback from a reader, you don't know, you don't have the audience cheering for you at the end of the song, right? So it's a, unless you build that workshop and build that
Mhm.
opportunity to get feedback, you're kind of like, off on your own.
Right.
And so that's really the whole point of the workshop, is to build community out of something that is otherwise can feel like a little, a really solo or lonely endeavor.
Cool. Yeah. So we have the one in January. I posted. You didn't see it, Brian, but I did post a screenshot of it. January 10th at Trillium Nature Center, Beaver Meadow. 9 to 4 p.m. is the first one. We still need to schedule the that 4 week one, but we're looking
That's right.
at end of February, beginning of March, somewhere in that time frame.
That's right. That's right. We have time to get that on the calendar, and that'll be a couple months away.
Great. So very exciting. Outside Chronicles, right? Chronicles is in the name, so it's
There you
it's
go.
amazing to have a best-selling author like Brian to steer us in that direction. So we're going to do a wrap up quick. I'm going to give you a kind of a lightning round of questions, but before we do that,
Okay.
I'm going to plug your farm, and I got a screenshot of Detroit. I'm going to say it wrong. Detroit Farm, right?
It's the True Farm.
Detroit.
Easy to say, hard to spell. The True
Detroit
Farm.
Farm. I got it up on the screen and I still got it wrong. So Detroit Farm.
Right.
At Detroit Farm on Instagram and Facebook, DetroitFarm.com. Can you just tell us what your farm produces right now? And right now there's a connection to Western New York as well, while you're still living here. So that's a good thing.
That's right. So our primary enterprise is we raise grass-fed lamb on pasture. So our lambs rotationally graze, and they essentially eat nothing except the grass and clover and forbs and various things in our pastures, and that keeps them happy and healthy, and that's healthier food for you too. So that's our primary enterprise. We also raised 400 chickens on pasture as well, that eat a combination of non-GMO grain from our neighbor, and then also bugs and grass and
Mhm.
all of those other kind of things as they scratch. And so we still have chicken. And then yeah, we're doing this farm stay bed and breakfast. And the idea is, if you want to do some chores in the morning, you can wake up and we'll feed the chickens, and we'll move the sheep, and we'll feed our giant livestock guardian dog Atwood, who's about 150 pounds and keeps the coyotes away from the sheep. And then we'll go inside and have breakfast made from things that we either raise on the farm, like chicken sausage, or products from our neighbors, bacon and eggs, and
Mhm.
all of those good things that come from our valley where we are. And we do have, I mean, we stock local farm stands. We're at Thompson's Farm Stand on Grand Island, for instance, and then farm stands in Eastern New York in Washington County. So that's what we're producing now. Yeah, and I should say, Detroit, yeah, I guess hard to read unless you're French, but those that's my wife's family. Her ancestors came to the Hudson Valley 400 years ago on the New Netherlands, which is one of the very first ships that settled New Amsterdam, which is New York City before the name change. So uh, we're not exactly in the same place as her ancestors settled, but we're pretty close.
Mrs. OC's in for taking care of animals and chickens.
It's perfect. And we're lambing in May. So if you want to cuddle week-old lambs, May is the time.
That would be awesome. Okay, so um, we have just one question that came in. If anybody else has any questions for Brian specifically about his life, his background, his books, anything outdoors, ask us. Feel free to drop it in the comments. Dorothea had a question that she said she's wondering what are the most important things to pack for long hikes and just shorter hikes, especially in the winter. And uh, Dorothea, I'm going to send a link in the chat for our um, 10 Essentials class. And that will get you started on all of the things that you need for all hikes. I'm trying to paste it in here and it's not pasting. And then if you take the hiking challenge, we also have a winter hiking 101 class that will talk you through all of those things to get you prepared for the hiking challenge. So that's free and included in the hiking challenge. For some reason, I'm not able to paste these links. Let's see. Dorothea came in through Facebook. Let me see if I can paste it directly into Facebook for you. So there you go.
We have the technology.
Yeah, right.
But
You would
key
think we'd
is,
be able to do this.
yeah, the key is, and Mike got to it, is this is essentials for all hikes. And so, short hikes can go wrong too.
Yeah.
And that's why you're always bringing a source of fire and a way to keep the rain off, and the other essentials. Even if you think you're going on just a quick couple miles, things can go sideways.
I learned my lesson. I had a lady that dislocated her ankle at Chestnut Ridge, and I happened to
Right.
be doing hill repeats and had nothing in my bag other than a 30-pound sandbag. So I couldn't even help her.
Right.
Luckily, Chestnut Ridge isn't very wilderness, and rescuers were coming very quickly. But I felt embarrassed not having my 10 essentials at least because I
Right.
was, not even thinking
If
of it.
anyone's going to have it, it's you.
Yeah, right. And I didn't. Laura says, "Will you have a reality show like the Clarkson Farm?" She loves that show.
I have had that show recommended to me. I can't tell you how many times. So I don't know. I might have to be content with the opera. I'm not sure the reality show is coming. I also have to get my son to be willing to get on camera a little bit. So we're still figuring that out with
Yeah,
Instagram. At the moment, the star of the show is the dog. Everyone
I'm
just wants to see
slowly
the dog.
trying to get Brian and his son Marty into lots of social media, posting all their
There you go.
stories and doing all the stuff live, even if it's just you know feeding chickens and slopping poop. It's
Yep.
people want to see that stuff.
There you go.
Good question here. So here's a good question for you, Brian. Are there any more books in the works? So I didn't mention your latest book called Stampede. So you could
That's
plug that
right.
one really quick. And I'm curious what's in the pipeline.
Yeah, so Stampede is the story of the 1897 gold rush in Alaska and Canada. And that I didn't recreate. I mean, that book is a little different in that it's straight history and it's told through the eyes of a number of people that were up there. Sam Steele, who was um, uh, he was a Canadian Mountie, or what's now known as the Mounties, through gold miners and dancing girls and indigenous people that lived up there. We have a number of viewpoints in that book. But so it's not told. I did go spend time up there, but none of it is my story. I should say though, the best backpacking I have ever done in my life was the Chilkoot Trail, which is part of that Stampede Trail, which goes from the coast in Alaska up over the Front Range and into Canada. It's a 5 day trip. It's actually, the border is closed right now, unfortunately. But if you ever have the opportunity to do the Chilkoot, it's like nowhere else. It's absolutely incredible. 5 days of backpacking. So that's my newest book that came out just a couple years ago.
And I'm going to interrupt you. Just
Yeah,
as you convinced me to do the Saranac Lake canoe trip, Brian's trying to convince me to do a backpacking trip up there. I think that would be a epic
yeah.
trip for Outside Chronicles.
Yeah, we will do that someday for sure. It's God's country up there. It's incredible. And then as far as like other projects now, yes, I am still writing. I actually write for Adirondack Life magazine. I have a story hopefully coming out in the next couple months there. And then I would say the big project, I try not to jinx things too much, but I have a magazine piece with Smithsonian on the birth of the smoke jumpers. Smoke
Oh,
jumpers are
yep.
woodland wildland firefighters who jump out of planes, and the story of how they came to exist is happened in World War II and absolutely fascinating. So hopefully next year, knock on wood, in 2026, that story will be a feature in Smithsonian.
Cool. Yeah, I've read a couple books about smoke jumpers. I'm excited to see that one.
Yeah, yeah, it's a real neat story.
Okay, and let's see. Can you put the farm name back up on? It sounds like a great place to stay.
Well, thank you. Yeah,
There it is.
okay.
You
Yeah,
can see them
Detreux,
on.
Dutreux.
Yep. And you can get them at detruefarm.com or on Instagram or Facebook, I believe. So yeah,
And we're on
grab that.
Airbnb as well for booking. Is
Oh,
that's
cool.
no, yeah.
Awesome. All right. Any more? If you have any more questions, put them in there. We're gonna move on to the lightning round for Brian and wrap this up. So we're gonna do the first part of it is a this or that.
Okay.
So all right, trail runners or hiking boots,
Hiking boots.
mountains or lakes.
Ooh, lakes. I'm getting
Ooh,
older. Lakes.
fiction or
Lakes with the
nonfiction?
mountains in the background. Can I cheat? Can I cheat? Uh,
Fiction or
uh
nonfiction? Answer this however you want.
yeah, nonfiction. I guess I have to claim it. It's what I write.
All right, Nutella or peanut butter?
Peanut butter.
Pizza or tacos?
Oh, pizza and wings all day long.
Hammock? Oh, blue cheese or ranch?
Hot sauce.
Okay.
I mean,
Ham-
obviously blue cheese, but I skip both.
Hammock or tent?
Tent.
Sunrise or sunset?
Oh, sunrise. Again, I mean, that's the farmer answer, right? But
Mhm.
yes, up before sunrise.
Uh,
Also at the farm, the sun rises over the mountains. And so it's particularly, I mean, we have amazing sunrises.
favorite outdoor book?
Ooh. Um, I will say the book. Okay, so this is not lightning anymore. Anytime anyone asks me my favorite anything, I instantly get a blank across my head and I can't think of anything at all. But the one that jumps to mind, I would say the most inspirational, maybe not the favorite, is a book called Clear Waters Rising, which Mike, you should read if you haven't read, which
I
is
haven't.
by a guy named Nicholas Crane, I believe. He walked across Europe by staying in the mountains. So he did the Pyrenees to the Alps to the Carpathians, and ends in Istanbul. And this is from the 90s, and it's absolutely fascinating. Just the people that he met that still live in the mountains there, the route he took. I would say that book was super inspirational. And you asked how I planned my trip. The first chapter of that book is all about how he planned and all the terrible decisions he made. So I mostly tried to avoid what he did in that book.
Interesting. I'm gonna have to read that one. I just finished a couple weeks ago a classic book that I had never read before. It's called Canoeing with the Cree. I mentioned it to
Oh, there
you
you
that
go.
that's
Yeah, there
a
you go.
classic canoe book. Maybe we need to recreate that journey from Minneapolis to the Hudson.
Yes, I mean there are. Sigurd Olson too. If you're looking to be inspired with canoes, Sigurd Olson did a lot of trips, not just in Minnesota, but Saskatchewan and Manitoba and stuff, and did a lot of those. There's some classic paddling literature from, I
Nice.
think that was like 30s and 40s is when he
Hmm.
did those.
What's your favorite place to hike?
Oh, I'm a high peaks person. And so one thing nice at the farm is the high peaks are less than 2 hours away.
Nice.
So yeah, so Heart Lake, the sense of possibilities when you're at Heart Lake, like I could go anywhere from here.
Hmm.
I love that feeling.
Awesome. If I gave you $1 million, where would your first adventure be?
Oh, I'm down to like, so in my life, I'm fortunate. I've done a lot of traveling between the military and jobs and various things. I'm down to three places I want to go, like anywhere in the world:
Hmm.
Patagonia, Norway, and New Zealand. They're all
Nice.
essentially the same place, actually. I mean, the terrain is very similar, but I guess I'd pick one of those.
All right. Uh, so answer this however you want, whether it's authoring, guiding, your current job. What's the least favorite thing you like to do?
Oh, the least favorite. Um, I'll answer from writing. I hate writing. I love editing. Editing is deeply satisfying. The original words on the page are torture.
Uh,
And so it's not the feeling of a blank page. I don't have a blank page anymore. I always manage to get something down. But the original Genesis, oh,
mhm,
excruciating. Oh, it's
uh,
so painful. The rewriting, the rewriting process is like a joy. And I just love the sense of accomplishment of turning bad sentences into good sentences, but writing the bad sentence, absolute worst.
would you say that that's your favorite thing, or do you have some new favorite thing on the farm that you like to do?
Oh, my favorite thing on the farm is moving the sheep and just watching them eat. And there is some real zen in just like being with the sheep while they're eating and they kind of forget you're there. And it is yeah, it's peaceful on a new level.
Oh, nice. So that's it for the wrap up. I want to just go back to Laura's question. She said she's inquiring about a great air mattress for taking on a hike 5 days on the trail. I'm a side sleeper, if that is a factor. I will say
Mm,
from my experience, yes, I'm also a side sleeper. Uh, I have gone with a slightly heavier pad that's slightly bulkier but way more comfortable. It's the Big Agnes
yep,
Rapide XL. And what I really love about it, especially being a side sleeper, because I'm not only a side sleeper, I'm a flipper and a
yep,
flopper. And the cool thing about that design is it's got a 3.5-inch baffles in the middle of it, and then a 4-inch baffles on the outside. So when you roll, it actually pushes you back towards the middle of the pad. And I've recommended that to many people. There's other ones that I have that are lighter, that are almost as comfortable, but if you're looking for comfort, that's a backpacking pad. I don't think you can go wrong with that one.
yeah, good rec. I also sleep on a Big Agnes. I think the trick for a double or for a side sleeper, because I am too, is double pillow. And I think actually
Mhm.
the pillow is more important than the pad in some ways for
I
that
would
comfort.
agree with that. I had to search long and far to get a pillow that I actually like. I use the Nemo Pillow, which is a hybrid between a foam and a blow up. It's not as high as I would like, but it's close. But two pillows would work. The other thing that I found is a lot of people will overinflate their sleeping mattresses. They'll get them
Mm.
like really, really firm, and they're actually much more comfortable if you just drop the air down just a little bit, and as long as you're not bottoming out on the ground, you can really get that fairly soft. I do like my mattress to be fairly firm, but I found that if I blow it up as far as I can blow it up by blowing into it with my mouth, that's too firm. It needs to drop the air just a little bit from there.
Yeah, good tip. Good point.
Good. I think this is it. I'll put Brian's farm back up on, and uh, if you need to take a screenshot, hopefully maybe one of you guys are taking care of lambs or feeding chickens in the near future. Brian, thank you for coming on. This was a really great conversation. Knowing you for as long as I have, I still learned a whole lot. So
Oh, that's funny.
so this was great.
No, I appreciate it, and I want to say again, I'm really excited about some of the writing workshops that we're planning and doing, and I think the OC community is the perfect spot for this. And I think I don't know, I'm excited to see who wants to join and what it grows into, and how people continue to share their work with each other. So hope to see some of you in January, or at the next iteration in the spring, or in some of the longer classes we might do.
Yeah, absolutely. We maybe see Brian on a couple trips too if you join us there. He's already signed up to guide a few trips
Yep.
for next year. Uh, Definitely sign up for the if you're interested in the writing workshop. I think there's 4 spots available, so it's a pretty exclusive class. And I know it's around the holidays, and you probably don't know what's happening in January, but the tickets are going pretty quick. So if you're interested in that class, definitely go to our events page and sign up. Look for our next live event, which is, let me pull it up. It'll be December 19th, and that's going to be our virtual kickoff for the hiking challenge. So join us on the 19th. The registration is going to open up during that. It'll be the same time, 7:30, and I'll go over all the trails, all the rules, all that kind of stuff during the challenge, and then you can start registering and hike on the 20th. So this was really good. We're getting a lot of comments in. Some of the comments are great that they could listen to us all day. So uh,
Well, if come on a trip with the two of us in the Adirondacks, and you might be forced to listen to us all day. We'll see what you think then by the end of the day.
yeah. So some great comments. Keith says, "Thanks for doing this. Interesting," and ordered the book. So you got at least one sale out of
There we
doing
go.
this.
There we go.
Thanks,
Thank you much,
guys.
Keith.
Thank you, Brian. Really appreciate you coming on, and thank you all for being here. And of course, we'll see you guys outside.